Hello, welcome back. My name is Andrei Pavlik. I'm a former chef with 10 years of experience. I've been retired for 2 years. I wanted to talk about why restaurants are probably one of the worst, if not the worst, business to start if you have no experience in the industry. If you do have experience, you have to have multiple hats. So if you're a chef who's been doing this for decades, you are not an expert in all of the requisite areas that are required to make the restaurant business model profitable. And so when I say restaurants, I'm talking about your typical sit down order restaurant. In urban areas, I'm going to avoid suburban areas, rural areas, seasonal spots, hotels, and resorts. I'm not familiar with the markets specifically or the market dynamics in suburban and rural areas, so I can't really speak to them specifically. Resorts and hotels have different business models. Although hotels do have a lot in common with a restaurant, there's a lot more going on. And the restaurants end up being an actual amenity versus the key source of revenue for the hotel. Resorts are an entirely different thing. Let's talk about restaurants and what I've experienced working in the restaurant industry. The first I have to say, and this is something that I didn't really appreciate until I had to open my own place in conjunction with our mutual friend and my wife, is the lack of a coherent concept. When I first moved to New York City, I worked in fine dining restaurants for Jean-Georges, for Tom Colicchio. Those brands were very coherent. They had a very strict identity of the kind of food they were serving, who they were serving it to, and they'd been doing it for so many decades that they had a large following. And they were much more successful. Obviously, they're still up and running. Tom Colicchio is still very famous. His restaurant, Crafted Hospitality, and the Beekman Hotel are still doing very well. Jean-Georges is a master franchiser that even Gordon Ramsay would be jealous of. Jean-Georges has the ability to go to any place in the world and tell any vacant commercial real estate spot, hey, you will actually pay me way more money because my name is going to be on the restaurant and it's going to be affiliated with this property. I can guarantee you success because my brand brings customers to the location and they know that the octopus that I serve in New York City will be the exact same as the octopus in Singapore or in Hong Kong or in Indonesia or wherever else he may venture to. He has the unique ability to standardize recipes and to have a solid team that has years of experience doing this, building out concepts, hiring locally, and making it happen. I didn't appreciate that brand power played so much of a role in a restaurant's success. The concept of the restaurant is the most important thing because it is the through line which will help you, the owner, and your team understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. And because you have a common mission statement, you can be guided by that concept and all of your decision-making processes. So you should be able to say what your concept is in a single sentence. One sentence should be able to define exactly who you are. The first example is we are a fast casual taco spot. Immediately in that one sentence, we can deduce the kind of business, environment, cuisine, and the style of service that you aim to achieve through that one sentence. First of all, you're selling tacos. That means you're Mexican cuisine. You're casual, which means that there is no pretension about what this establishment is. It's easily accessible to the vast majority of people. You're targeting a broad demographic from yuppies to Mexican immigrants. Because you're fast, you're doing lots of turns and covers. The goal is to burn and turn. Because this concept is articulate, you have a very good idea of what you're getting yourself into. You expect to eat tacos. You expect to eat Mexican food. You expect the food to be spicy. You're expected to have a large enough capacity to seat between 35 to 100 people if the property allows for that. You're expecting a certain decor and you're expecting relatively loud music, a fun, relaxed environment. You know exactly what you're getting yourself into. The reason I'm stressing the banality of the concept is because it is so often misunderstood and not articulated as the foundation for what you're trying to build. Because so many restaurants have large menus. I'm working with a current client whose name I will not mention. They have a massive Mediterranean menu. I'm talking about 3 pages of things, whether it's Italian classics, bronzino, pastas, pizza, and other things, 100 plus items. The concept will help you stay focused. It'll help you find the proper location. It will help you decorate accordingly. It will help you streamline your menu and not add things because you feel like you're compelled to because they're trending. You know who you are, and that will dictate what you will do. The second reason that restaurants fail is because the food is made by humans. Every single thing that the restaurant makes is made by people with their hands. It means that there's a level of training that needs to go along with the process. Think about so many other businesses that you interact with on the day to day, whether it's a publishing company, the software company, people making iPhones, toothpaste, floss, or any other commodity item that you can't eat. That thing has already been designed, meticulously prepared. There's a factory that makes it. The process is standardized. Even furniture, most of these things are made by machines. Imagine going to a furniture store and you want a couch and the couch is made to order. I know that's an insane example, but that's the point I'm trying to drill home, is that because the food is made by human beings, there needs to be an entire infrastructure dedicated to proper training so that the food can be made as consistently as possible, as efficiently as possible, while still maintaining quality and value. Most restaurants fail on a profound level to staff properly and to train their staff to execute. This fills the gamut from when the food arrives, is your receiver checking it? Are they looking through the items? What is your process for that? Then, are your prep cooks following recipes? Do you even have recipes? Are you ensured that the recipes are being properly followed if you have them? When service starts, are the stations set up optimally? Let's say the cold station is designed to make appetizers, salads, crudos, etc. Does that person who's running that station know how to run that station? Are they ready for service? Do they know how to execute? Does all their food taste correct? Are they plating correctly? Don't get me wrong, there is an iterative process where individuals can learn from A to Z because they do it every single day, rinse and repeat nonstop until they're fully drilled and they are basically machines. We even have a funny name called machine. It's an endearing term that we use to describe kitchen staff that are absolutely excellent at what they do. They've gone past humanity and into machinehood, where they're so good, they're so fast, they're so consistent. The third reason that restaurants fail is because they don't understand and properly monetize for their fixed costs. The primary fixed cost I'm talking about is rent. Rent is the biggest cost for restaurants to deal with. And the only second cost to that is labor, or which we'll touch on in a little bit. Rent is profoundly important. What is your rent per month and how long is your lease? The longer the lease, the better, so you can be locked into it to avoid any volatility. You need to understand, using basic napkin math, how much you need to sell of your top line items from your concept to break even. I need to know that on a per hour basis, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, so that you can hit your goal. You need to understand what my operation costs to run daily. From there, how much do I need to sell to optimize for that? When I say costs for the day, that includes many other things. But because rent is the most important one, just by looking at what the cost of the rent is, you should be able to deduce whether or not your concept has any merit of existing. If your rent is, say, $100,000 a month and you're a small coffee shop, you're going to have to sell a lot of coffees before you even calculate all of the other startup costs. The fourth reason the restaurants fail is that they do not have the proper capital to sustain them through their early years. When I say years, I should really be saying 6 months to a year, because that is the rate at which most restaurants fail in urban settings. When we talked about rent, from there, you have to build out based on your concept. The space, how many seats do we have? How many turns can we do? How many days are we going to open per week? What is our expected check average? How many staff do we need to execute? Are we going to do takeout or not? You can deduce all of this from the rent and from the space itself, guided by your concept. From there, you should know exactly what your operational costs are, and you should expect losses in your first 3 to 6 months or even first year of running. Your goal in your first year is to, as quickly as possible, streamline your process, serve the best possible product you can as quickly and as efficiently as possible while maintaining customer satisfaction. I know this is banal, but this should be baked into the recipe that is your pitch, that is your business model, that is your concept. So that when you find the proper location, you can explain this to your investors and say, this is our runway. Within X amount of time, we can hit small goals, and then we're moving in the proper direction of finally paying off the startup costs. And the startup costs for restaurants are absolutely immense. Putting rent aside, even if it's a turnkey operation where you walk in and there's some skeleton of a restaurant, you need to check if the ventilation is working, if your ansel system is working, How are your ranges? How are your ovens? How are your freezers? How is your walk-in? How are your low boys? And then all of the other equipment. And then you need to assemble a team of a head chef, whether it's an executive chef, a chef de cuisine, somebody who's going to be in charge of the dining experience. And then you need to staff it out based on the needs of the concept and based on your ability to service. How will the service work from the size of the kitchen equipment that's involved to facilitate the service to the guest in that dining area? There has to be coherent and strict correlation between the ability of your kitchen to make and the ability of the dining room to receive. They have to come together. If you have 35 seats, how many turns can you do to optimize those 35 seats? Can the team in the kitchen do it based on the menu? Very important thing to understand. When it comes to if the restaurant is properly monetized by investors, you need to have that runway. You need to figure out what all those things are as quickly as possible to hit your small goals and survive the first year. The fifth main reason the restaurants fail is that they are bad at communicating their concept to the audience via marketing. Because you're a brick and mortar location, the location cannot move. It's stuck where it is. And because food is perishable, it needs to be made repeatedly over and over again to be fresh. You're stuck in one place and you make a thing that goes back very quickly. Therefore, you need to consistently reach customers in any way that you can to get butts in seats. That is where the do or die happens. How many butts in seats can you get? For every person that sits down, what is their check average? And then if that's the average check average across all the tables, how many turns do you need to maximize revenue? It means that when your restaurant's at capacity, what does that number look like? And does that number approximate where your costs are? All these questions are very important, but the through line that matters is how many people can you service at a given time? And how much revenue do they provide per person to your establishment? Your goal is to maximize that. If your capacity is 70 seats, how many days a week can you optimally fill the restaurant with those 70 seats? Does each turn guarantee full capacity? This is where marketing becomes profoundly important. Restaurants need to use social media to bring customers to their venue. You and your team to make a budget for how much food you're willing to give away. This food is meant to be giving away to the people that are in your local area. You need to be reaching out to every single business in your area. You need to be going, seeing if there's a bank, if there's a law firm, if there's an office. Go out and do research. Preferably, you've already done this before you've even signed the lease. You understand what your area is. Is there a particular demographic? If you're a middle-of-the-pack Indian restaurant and you don't have a large Indian base to sell to in your area, you shouldn't be signing the lease. You should be looking for an Indian demographic where the restaurant should be located to sell to those people. The point is, where you are matters. We should be reaching out to the businesses in your area and saying, we're here. We're going to be opening X amount of months or days from now. This is the food we have. This is the menu. These are the business cards. These are our days of operation. Eat the food for free. The goal is that you're not just marketing online, which is very important. Yes, Facebook ads and advertising on Instagram is important. You need to do that. But that's to attract everybody else that's probably not in the area or that you missed. But the goal is to discover what those large social networks are and go to them directly. Give the shit away for free. That way you can bring them into your place. The superpower of food is unlike any other product that exists. Immediately when I give it to somebody, it has value. Not just because it's free, but because it's food. It's sustenance, it's nurturing. And if it's good, the customer will know immediately that it's good, and you will know immediately the customer liked it. There is no barrier in that sense. There isn't like, hey, is this software optimal for my business? Is this accounting service better than the other? How are you supposed to know? With food, I give it to you, you take it, you know right away, I know right away. We can make that connection. So, do that. Then go to other high populated areas that are near your area and give food away for free. Have a small pop-up, do that. And then you can leverage social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook to create advertisements, to do targeted advertising. And if your product is good, the people will come. The sixth reason why restaurants fail and why they're an awful business to begin. The sixth reason is that restaurants don't even know their costs. Let me rephrase that another way. Very few restaurant owners know what their plate cost is. It means that when I walk in and say, hey, what does a plate cost if you Caesar salad? It means literally inside the bowl, what are the costs of the ingredients? What is that dollar amount? And then, because of the sale point, what's that margin in the middle? You should know the cost of it. And when I say, what is the margin or gross profit, GP dollars of the Caesar salad, it's the difference between the price point and the cost of the item. If the Caesar salad costs $2 to make, you sell it for $6, that $4 is your GP. That's your gross profit. That is your margin. And whatever that percentage is, you want that to be as high as possible. The biggest issue with this is that plate cost is actually very difficult to calculate. It's not that the logic and the math is hard. It's that actually doing the work behind it is profoundly difficult. What you need to do is first standardize all of your recipes. Let's use a Caesar salad example. Caesar salad has Caesar dressing. What are the components within the Caesar dressing? How much do those components cost? And then when the recipe is made, what is the cost of that batch? Imagine selling t-shirts. Imagine you're in a t-shirt business and you're like, hey, I love merch. I want to make merch. And what I'm noticing is that I know how much my t-shirts cost. T-shirt costs $2 to make. I sell for $25. High margin item. But imagine you're starting a business, any business, and you don't know what your costs are for the very items that you're selling. I'm not talking about rent. I'm not talking about staff. I'm not talking about like software things or like computers or phones or anything like that. I'm talking about just like the very thing you're selling. How much does it cost? How much are you selling it for? What's the cost? What's the sell price? What's the gross profit? What is that margin percentage? Restaurants don't know this, and it takes them forever to calculate because they don't do it as they're developing the recipe. They do it after when management or ownership calls up and is like, hey, food costs all over the place. It's too high. And you're like, okay. Then you're trying to fix food costs. You're trying to do inventory. You're trying to understand what your COGS are. And you're trying to compare it to this month's inventory. And then you're trying to match that with revenue. So that's how food cost is calculated. But plate costs, you don't even know that. You don't know what you're selling and how much it costs. That's insane to me. And so please, restaurants, take your top 5, top 3 best-selling items and figure out what their plate costs are and adjust the pricing or lower the cost that's on the plate. Because that way, the thing that you're selling, you want to have as high of a margin as possible because that's the thing that's driving the majority of your revenue. Notice how I didn't even mention food. We went through 6 reasons why restaurants fail, and I'm going to talk about the 7th one. And it's actually the least important because it's assumed, and yet so many restaurants fail at it. How good is your food? If you succeed at all of the other 6 reasons and you address them for why restaurants fail and you're successful, but your food is shit, guess what? You're going to fail. You have the best concept. You have the best rent. You have properly trained staff. You're really good at marketing and you know your costs, but your food sucks. Then what? This is the part that's the most interesting because what makes good food, we know if it's good or bad. It's very polarizing. This dish was good, this dish was bad, and that's it. But when it comes to actually crafting the food and being like a food consultant to restaurants, there's a lot that's objective as far as like the proper technique, how to season. You can imitate and replicate things that already work well and bring your food to that level. But the issue is there's so many of the decisions that are subjective. Do you want your burger to have pickles on it? Do you want it to have a Big Mac sauce on it? Or do you want to put lettuce? Are you putting foie gras on there? Are you doing a bunch of gold leaf like Solpe? So I want to avoid all those nitty gritty things that I find to be arbitrary. It's like, if it's your concept, that's what you want to sell it. But make sure it's as good as possible. And even now, it is so hard to find properly trained line cooks who then go on to become successful chefs because the successful chefs are good at cooking, but they fail at the other aspects of the restaurant biz that are hyper necessary, that precede even their ability to make good food. And hopefully, if you are an aspiring chef and you want to pursue a career in this industry, partner up or learn what these things are so that you can focus on the food and your partner can focus on everything else. But also know exactly what you're doing, know exactly what your role is. I'm running out of figures here. So that was the 7th reason. 8th reason why restaurants fail. They overstaff or they don't know how to properly staff. This is a thing that really bothers me at my core because I fundamentally believe that if I'm hiring individuals to work in my restaurant, I want them to know how many hours they're going to work per week and how much they're going to make so that when they get their paycheck, they can move on with their lives. They can plug in per week. I'm going to get a paycheck worth this much. Therefore, I can live my life outside of work. Listen, I know we're chefs. I know we're all about work. 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I work nonstop. I work the most. I have no work-life balance. I'm just somebody. Listen, my staff have lives. I have a life outside of work. For me to expect them to do the best possible work for me, it's not just because I want to train them and show them the skills in exchange for the labor and that they do the work. It's that I want them to also know how much money they're going to make for the service they're providing on my behalf as an employee. That's so important to me. And so that collides directly with the need to properly staff when it's a slow shift. So how do we get around this? Yes, this will happen. Restaurants will cut staff. They'll cut servers, they'll cut blind cooks, they'll cut prep cooks, they'll tell people not to come in. They will do that because, hey, it's slow today. We can't afford to pay you. Therefore, I have to cut you to save on that cost. I understand that, but I'm also fervently against it because of all the ways that people and staff leave businesses, specifically restaurants, of all the ways that they could possibly leave because it's a toxic environment, the work is too hard, there's too much pressure, the guests are awful, the working conditions are bad, there's sexual harassment, they're underpaid, they work too much, all those reasons. At the very least, I don't want to be a financial contributor to that. Yes, I may not be paying you, CEO level salary, but at the very least, what I am paying you, I want it to be consistent for you throughout the week. So as an employer, I want to avoid as much as possible to cut my staff just because it's slow. I would much rather maintain a professional, capable person that I have a good rapport with, that does good work, that I trained and built up after all these months/years, and I want to retain their labor because I value their contribution to the success of the restaurant over the loss that occurs because they're here and it's not busy. That's what I value, and that's a choice that restaurants have to make. This is why I would much rather optimize on all of the other facets of the restaurant to get butts in seats, to get customers to come in so that we're always busy, so that we're always getting revenue, so that we're eking out a small profit, and so that I can continue to employ my staff and pay them versus cutting them to save money. That's my decision, and that's a decision that restaurants have to make. There might be the off chance that I might send someone home, but it's very rare. I prefer to keep the staff because I've invested so much time in them versus constantly cutting them during a slow season or even firing them and then I have to replace them when it gets busier or I have to do the work myself. And instead of managing the property, doing the plate cost, the food cost, the inventory, the waste logs, trying to make sure that marketing is good, communicating menu changes from the house staff, developing new recipes, doing procurement and securing locked prices for goods that are used predominantly in high volume. It's like there's so much work that I have to do that I don't want to be on the line doing the job of a person that I lost because I couldn't maintain their expected hours. Imagine you come in and your boss is like, go home, we don't need you today. Do I still get my paycheck? Yeah, but it's going to be reduced by the amount of hours that you would have otherwise worked. So instead of working 40 hours, again, the money you deserve, you only work 32 because I cut your 8-hour shift. How does that make you feel as an employee? It makes you feel unnecessary and even replaceable when you're not replaceable. Yes, labor is the second highest cost in the restaurant because human beings make the food from scratch. I value the amount of work and time and effort I put into getting the person, hiring them, and then training them. When they do a good job, I don't want to punish them to eke out that 8-hour difference in labor to save that cost for myself. I'd much rather have them come in and do something else. That I value much more. And it's much more valuable overall to the restaurant that I am not on the line doing service or doing cold station or working grill or washing dishes. That's a job for somebody else. My job as a chef is to manage the property, to make sure that everything is running smoothly so that when butts do come into seats, they get the best possible experience. And the only way I can guarantee that is if I have human beings who are dedicated, professional, properly trained, want to do a good job, and want to learn. I want to reward that by giving them at least the hours that they deserve, but that's what I value. I have a feeling this video has run on for long enough. I can talk infinitely about all of the different ways that restaurants fail and how they can do better, but I hope that this video was a good starting point. This is a very difficult job, very difficult, and I chose this to be my career. I'm retired, but now I have the time to reflect and look back and hopefully provide some value of the things that need to be done before chefs or owners even think about the quality of the food, which is very important. But there's all these other things that need to be taken care of. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a good one.